Hey, good afternoon, SBC 205, Vic McGinnis. Once again, your public speaking instructor. Want to give you some feedback on your ceremonial introductory speeches today. They're graded. The rubrics are done. I will be posting your grades with comments tomorrow. I'm just not going to get to it today. It's going to take me a couple hours to get all that done, and I will be following up and doing that tomorrow. Once you see your grade, if you have any questions about any of my comments, please feel free to send me an email. Additionally, if you want to, I cannot scan. I have no way of scanning and posting your rubrics. It would just be, doing 70 or 50 or 60 rubrics would just be too time consuming. If you do want to see your rubric, send me an email asking to see the rubric and asking any questions you have. I'll scan a copy of your rubric and email it back to you. Okay. What I'm going to do today is, first of all, talk about some mechanical things that I want you to be conscious of. And then the second thing I'm going to do is talk about some of the issues we had with this speech. That we have with speeches. That's fine. We'll move through it. I'll give you some corrections, and then we'll move forward. Okay, the first thing I got to tell you, though, right off the bat is you have to follow instructions. Okay, the instructions for this speech were very simple. Go to the discussion board, post your link, and post the name of the person you're introducing. About 45% of you figured that out and actually did it correctly. The other half did not post the name of the person you would be introducing. Didn't cost you any points this time, but the next time the procedure for giving your speeches is going to become more complex. You're going to have to email me an outline a week from this Friday. And it can't be, I'm not going to open files. If you send me a link to a Google Doc, or if you send me a link to, or send me a Word file, I'm not going to open it. Okay, and if you don't send me that outline, you're not going to be given a speech. Second of all, so that everybody else can see what your speech is and how its speech develops, you'll be posting your outline in the discussion board. If you stick a file on there, if you don't do it the way I tell you and with the instructions I give you, the speech won't be graded. Okay? So this is going to be very important. All right? You've got to learn to follow instructions in this class. Second thing, I had a number of people reach out to me and say, hey, listen, the person I'm introducing is dead. Okay, yeah. I mean, people were, introducing historic figures that clearly are no longer with us. What do I do? And there were so many of those, I actually sent out an announcement last Friday that said, remember, you're introducing someone who will be speaking after you. Even if they died in 1547, they will be speaking after you. So make sure you don't introduce them as the late John Doe. And yet, I had 5 or 6 people give us the dates and cause of death. Okay? I mean, again, didn't cost any points this time. I tried to be very flexible, but that is a very simple instruction that I gave to everyone via a Blackboard announcement that a significant number of people just did not seem to get. Okay? Did it cost you any points this time? No, not really. I decided not to really sort of weigh in on that. If you did it, you know who you are. Okay? I don't understand why I can give, and in some cases, to each of those, several of those individuals, I emailed back specifically, don't mention their death, and yet they still mentioned that they died. Excuse me. So these things have got to be considered when you're doing this speech. Okay? So let's go over some other things real quick. First of all, time. If I open up your speech and you go 2 minutes and 6 seconds, and the minimum is 2 minutes and 45, you're going to get a 0 out of 10 for that. Okay? Some of y'all are going to come back and say, hey, listen, mine was 2:42. Isn't that close enough? Close enough is 2:45, and I've been very clear about that. If you don't make the time and you care about those 10 points, you go back and redo the speech. Okay? I don't care how many times you do it. You should be doing it multiple times before you send it in to me and rehearsing it. If you send me something that is clearly either goes under or goes over, because I had a speech that went 4 minutes. If you're not rehearsing that speech, that's the first time you did it, you slap it on a link in, and then you send it to me. You guys need to be looking at this because time is going to become more and more important. And as I pointed out, if you blow the time on every speech, you're going to wind up losing a letter grade of the course overall. So time is important. You have to work on that. Okay? Your next speech is only going to use 2 note cards no bigger than 4x6, not 8.5 pieces and 11 pieces of paper folded down to 4x6, not pieces of paper cut to 4x6. I mean, you need note cards because having papers that are flopping around that you've trimmed just doesn't look professional. All right, so be aware that if you don't have only 2 4x6 note cards, and I will talk to you about how to make your note cards, that's gonna have an impact on the next speech. If you use 3, it's going to cost you 10%. Okay. Now, as far as the manuscripts, it was okay for you to have an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, but I need you to start thinking about how you present yourself. A lot of you had manuscripts that you clearly just ripped out of a spiral notebook. Some of you had big markouts and scratch outs and slashes on the backs of the paper that we could see while we're viewing your speech, okay? Again, didn't cost you any points, but that is something as you go through your professional life and you're professionally communicating, okay, you need to be aware of. All right. Several of you will have comments about vocal fluency. And what I mean by vocal fluency is the language, the words you use should flow effortlessly. Some of you struggle. I'm not talking about, a slow vocal rate. I'm talking about the fact that you're struggling to pronounce words that should clearly, obviously be something you know, like your subject's middle name. If you start off by giving the middle name and have to try 3 times to pronounce it, that means you haven't ever said it before. Okay? That's clearly what that indicates to me. Same thing with places of birth, anything else. Also, if you stop, there's one thing to struggle for words and to have a brain lock and not be able to come up with the next word in a sentence. That's why we use note cards to refer back to. Many of you try to do this without note cards. Don't do that anymore. Have note cards for the next speech. But if you really are struggling with the words, that indicates to me you haven't practiced the speech and you're not fluent with the ideas. Okay? The other thing I said that some of you are going to see along the same lines is be more conversational. Even though I allowed you to read a manuscript, and I know we haven't talked about reading manuscripts yet, you're going to get that lecture probably tomorrow, but I didn't grade off for it, but I did make a note of be more conversational. If you're reading something, and clearly I don't have anything here at hand to read, but if you're sitting there going, Abraham Lincoln was born on the 4th of January, 1802. He was born in Louisville, Kentucky. He moved to Illinois. That's not how people have a conversation. Remember when we talked about performance apprehension, we said communication versus performance mindset. The dialogic theory is you're having a conversation with the people, not reading them a script. Okay? Even if you're reading them a script in a manuscript, you should be trying to communicate with them. So be aware of that. Your next speech is going to be given extemporaneously, which means you're not going to be writing it word for word on your note cards. Be aware of that. Okay, that's the mechanical stuff that I really want to hit on. Now I want to get into the much more serious topic of why your grades, or what the grades you got. Okay. I have a colleague who's a chemistry instructor. I was speaking to her one day, kind of frustrated that the students weren't following my instructions. And she looked at me and she sort of said, I understand where you're coming from. But if I put on the instructions for a lab sheet that you're going to be graded for the precision of the measurements of your materials, and the student turns in a lab worksheet that says I used some chlorine, I used some sodium, I used some, and that's it. And that's as precise as they get. They're going to get a 0 for that lab. And I was like, okay, that's analogous to what I'm talking about. All right, going into this, I told you that there was going to be 3 things that you needed. Well, you're going to be graded on 5 things. I posted this rubric in the documents folder. We went over it during a lecture. You cannot say you were surprised by what I graded you on. I went over it point for point and told you exactly what I expected to see during the speech, which would give you a check, that would give you a big 10, or if you didn't do it, would get you a 0. Okay? Let's go back over physical delivery. Everybody did pretty good with physical delivery. I'm not going to harp on physical delivery too much. Generally, everybody got 6, 7, or 8 out of 10. Some people came in lower, and I'll have comments for them. Some people did really well with physical delivery, but overall, you guys did okay with physical delivery. You're going to have to learn how to relax your elbows, and you're going to have to learn how to gesture, okay? But that's all fine. General, physical delivery was okay. Time, 245 to 315 is pretty cut and dried. If you came in at 242, you got a 0. You came in at 320, you got a 0. That's just the way it is. I told you guys that was going to be the criteria. Okay? And YouTube times it for me. Okay? When I look at the time hack down at the bottom, if you're at 317 and you take a second to get set and start, you're fine. But if you're at 348, yeah, that's going to be a 0. Okay? The other 3 are, say, topic of speech, speaker's qualifications, and relevance to the audience. What most of you did was a biographical sketch where you gave us their life story. Okay? Which is fine. That falls under speaker's qualifications. Okay. But many of you, and I haven't gone back, and I can't tell you most, 60%, 40%, whatever. A lot of you didn't bother to tell us what the speaker's topic was. Okay? And I specifically told you that the speaker's qualifications had to be in relation to the topic they would be speaking on. Okay, again, Hank Aaron, arguably greatest baseball player of all times. If you give me a rundown on his baseball career and then tell me he's here to talk about financial planning, your qualifications did not apply to that topic. And if you don't give us the topic they're going to be speaking on, your qualifications don't really matter because we don't know where they're coming from. And a lot of you will say, well, it's Michelle Obama. And again, I'm just picking these names out of a hat. It's Bo Jackson. It's Meryl Streep. These are famous people. Of course, people know what they're going to. Again, the direction I gave you on how to get the good grade in this speech was, you will tell us explicitly today they will be talking about. Okay? You would give us their qualifications. They are knowledgeable on this topic because. And then give us all the things they've done. And then you would give relevance to the audience. You need to listen to this speech today because. Okay. Let me give you a B speech in 30 seconds. Okay?
Bonnie.
B speech, 30 seconds. Today I have the pleasure and honor to introduce to you Dr. Albert Einstein. Dr. Einstein will be speaking today about nuclear physics. Dr. Einstein is qualified to speak about nuclear physics because he has a Nobel Prize in nuclear physics. Nuclear physics is clearly an issue for us here in the CSRA, as the Savannah River Nuclear Plant is the #1 employer in the CSRA. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Dr. Albert Einstein. Okay. Working on the assumption that I had my feet shoulder width apart, head up, hands out to the side, gesturing. I got a 10 for physical delivery. I gave the topic of the speech. I gave the speaker's qualifications, and I gave the relevance to the audience. That's 40 out of 50 points. Now, clearly I came in under 2 minutes and 45 seconds, so I'd have gotten a 0 out of 10. But I would still walk away with a B. Okay? Because I followed the objective grading as set forth in the rubric. Okay, so what does that mean to you? I designed this course and I stagger the grading for the speeches so that you can really screw up on the first couple. I honestly want, listen, when I take a class now, I'd have to take a lot of mandatory online training. Don't tell Dr. Mahan this, but a lot of times, since we do like things like computer security and stuff, and I worked for the National Security Agency for 30 years, I can skip to the test. I was an equal opportunity counselor for my division. I know Title IX really well. I can skip to the Title IX test and take it and max it. I understand that. You want to find out where my limits are. I give you this speech sort of as a freebie. 50 points is really easy. Okay? You can blow it. And you can lose 25, 30 points, and that's still not going to have a massive impact on your final grade if you start listening to my instructions now. Okay? In the next 2 or 3 days, between tomorrow and Monday, you will be given specific instructions on how to build a speech. That is what you need to focus on. Okay? As we move forward, you need to focus on the instructions I give you to build a good, informative speech. If you do that, the next speech is worth 75 points. You can get an A on that speech without any problems. You just have to do what I tell you. Okay? Because I'm teaching you the mechanics of how to be a good public speaker. Okay? Again, I'll be posting your grades tomorrow. With comments, if you have any questions about the comments, send me an email. If you want to see your rubrics, send me an email. It may take me a day or two to get back to your rubrics, to get those scanned and sent back to you, but I promise I will get them to you. Other than that, I will be taping another lecture tomorrow that I will be posting later on in the day. I've got another speech for you to watch. That will be coming out along with a link to this talk. So stay well, stay safe, and we will see you soon.